It is your responsibility as an adult to heal the traumas in your life. It is true that a lot of them happened when you were in your childhood and they were due to no fault of yours. However, once you become an adult, your life is your responsibility.
Joy Iseki is a trauma recovery therapist focused on guiding individuals to experiencing healing and love again. She's the lead therapist at Joy Iseki International based in Lagos State, Nigeria. She's an advocate for mental health awareness and constantly uses all her platforms to collaborate with organizations as well as others to promote mental health. Joy is an author of books on wellness, with her recent work titled Healing Pathways, Empowering Paths to Your Healing. With Jesus Joy, please welcome Joy Iseki to this month's edition of This Is My Reality Talk Show.
Schizophrenia, which we mostly called weary. Okay, permit me to use that word so that you can understand. So it cuts across. It has variety. Okay, so mental illness is because there's a distress, there's a negative impact on our mental health to the point that is affecting us with our day-to-day life. Okay? Some people have anxiety and they're able to go to work, they're able to do stuff, but they have to do extra in order to cope. So that's when it becomes an illness. But mental health generally and physical health, they contribute to your overall health. So you have mental health, you have physical health. Your general well-being, your overall health has to do with your mental health and your physical health. So you're having mental illness because mentally you are being affected. Okay? So it's impacting on your day-to-day. Key points, I keep emphasizing on day-to-day lifestyle because sometimes you might go through mental disturbance, but it does not affect your day-to-day lifestyle. So that means you are able to cope. Okay? So at that point, you don't have mental illness. But when it comes to the state where you have to struggle or you go through therapy, you go through medications in order to cope with your day-to-day life as a result of your emotions, it means that there is a mental illness, there's a mental disturbance. Okay?
Thank you for that explanation. Now, we know that there are so many causes for mental health. I would like us to begin with the most dominant one, which has to do with early trauma, abuse. Abuse could come in any form: emotional, psychological, physical abuse at a tender age. And when you check it, I was doing some research and I found out that statistics actually proves that most of people that have mental health challenges are people that have been abused as children, as young children. So what are some of the ways in which people that have been traumatized from childhood that are now having mental health challenges can overcome these issues?
All right, like she said, one of the causes, one of the things that makes you predisposed to mental illness is actually your childhood traumas. We call it adverse childhood experiences. Okay, sometimes it's sexual, sometimes emotional neglect, sometimes it has to do with poverty, war, seeing war. I want to break it from the point of why does this affect, why does this predispose you, why does it make you likely to suffer from mental illness? Because when those things happen, let's take a practical example. A child is raped. Let's say a 10-year-old child is raped. Now, usually children don't know anything about sexuality. And now, somebody now forcefully gain entrance into that child's body. What have you done? You have exposed that child to something their mind is not able to process. Something horrific. Okay? And that event, what it does is that in trying to process the event, in trying to understand what happened, the child might start to have distorted beliefs about who they are. They might start to think, oh, it's because I'm not worthy, it's because I am not a good girl, it's because I am not beautiful. That's why this happened to me, it's because I am cursed. They start to feel shame, okay? And with time, as they grow up, if they were not able to process the event, if they were not able to, have adults or therapists or psychiatrists that help them to process that event, these distorted feelings go on to affect how they think about themselves. Like I told you in the beginning, mental health actually involves anything that involves how you think and feel and then impacts on how you act. So that affects how that child behaves. The child becomes a lot of times they become very shameful. They have this shame, and then they experience resentment, deep-seated resentment. And the feeling of shame is actually an intense emotional pain. As a matter of fact, it's similar to intense physical pain in our brain. That's how our body feels it. So that affects the child, and it might lead to anxiety. The next time the child sees, let's say it's a male figure that raped the girl, if she sees a male figure who is coming close to her, it brings her back. We call it trigger. It brings her back to that event, and then she might start panicking, start reacting the way she reacts then. And if she's not taught how to manage that, what happens is that she might develop depression. She might develop anxiety. That's how these things happen. And it's not always that because you have a childhood trauma, that means you're going to suffer from mental illness. Okay, it's not all, but if you're not able to process it, to come to that place of understanding, you might experience mental illness.
Right. So there are some times where you see reverse. The reverse is the case. Now, I was having a conversation with someone some time ago, and this is someone that has been abused, right from childhood. But rather than being traumatized, I would say it's a form of trauma for her. She now wants to just be open to everybody. When she sees any male figure, she doesn't mind, getting close to the person, because she feels like that's her way of getting over whatever has happened. So in cases like that, where rather than being depressed, feeling anxious or restraining from the other person, the opposite sex, you now tend to want to get closer because you've been abused. What can be done in that kind of situation?
When you mean closer, is she also...
She wants to get intimate with the other person because of the abuse.
That makes sense. That's also a coping mechanism. Okay, she's trying to cope. He or she's trying to cope with what happened. Now, for this person, what has happened to their mind? They now believe that to gain love, they have to be gained entrance into. Okay, to this person now, it means that their own interpretation of intimacy, she has been taught that if I can have you, if I can have sex with you, if I can sleep with this man, then maybe I can get his attention. So they now use it. What they do, sometimes they use it as a tool. Or at times, they also use it like, it becomes like, what word do I want to use? It becomes like trying to act like nothing. In trying to act like nothing happened. Okay? Trying to act like what happened to me was nothing. And so you start doing that thing the more. But every time you do it, if you go further to that person and you talk to them, they still feel that sense of shame. Now, to deal with that shame, they go back to that pleasure. It's like a circle. It's like a trauma circle. Like she keeps going back, but she's crying for help. That child is actually crying for help. It's like she's trying to cope. She feels bad. She feels horrible about herself or her body. Okay, now to feel like she can get the attention back to herself, she can get that validation, she gives in because she has been taught that is the way to be loved. That is the way for her to gain attention. So it's actually an extreme case. That's why some people even go into prostitution as a result. That's why I say most times we have to hear people's story. We have to understand what happened to them. Because what happened to you many times can explain your behavior. Okay?
Right. So beyond abuse and all that, some people suffer from mental health issues, depression, because of separation. I mean, their parents probably separated when they were pretty young, or they grew up having single parents, and it has affected their view of life and their mental health. For people that are having challenges as such, because these are the major points of areas that cause mental health issues for people. So I want us to look at probable solutions to all of them. For people that suffer from issues like this because of separation of their parents at a tender age, how can they navigate through that phase?
Okay, for most children, especially when we are in developmental stages of our lives, okay, we think that, in fact, our parents are our first reflection of the world. I tell people this a lot. That's why I'm so particular about family system. Family is so important. Whatever you experience in your childhood, whatever experience you had from your parents, that becomes your mental ideals about life, about how the world is. Okay, look at this instance now. If the parents were going through a lot of domestic issues, and fighting and quarreling and all of that, and they throw it out a lot of times on the children because they are trying to lash out that pain, what the child feels is that The world is a chaotic place. The world is unsafe. And that's one of the reasons why people go through anxiety, panicky attack. Okay? Now, what happens if you came from this kind of family background? I always tell people, see, it's okay that you recognize what happens. You don't have to deny it. Because the key to healing, the key to freedom is truth. You don't deny things to be safe. You don't hide or ignore things or avoid them to be safe. Truth. What is that truth? The truth that I did not come from maybe a nurturing home. Okay? And let me be careful in the word dysfunctional. When we say a home is dysfunctional, psychologically, it doesn't really mean that it's because the parents are separated. To be candid with you, sometimes that's why you see in advanced countries, they come to take children out of very turbulent homes. Some homes, parents are together, but it is war. Okay? It is war. The key thing is this, in the essence of me trying to explain dysfunctionality is that so that we don't think that, oh, just because somebody comes from a single mother or a single father home, that means they are totally destroyed. Sometimes that separation actually helps the child. Maybe the parents can stop fighting. At least they don't see themselves and then, okay. So dysfunctionality in home is a place where the child does not feel cared for. The child is not nurtured emotionally. The child feels unsafe. They don't know what will happen the next time. Sometimes the parents even seek advice and throw all their problems. A child is not your marriage advisor. But they have to become that. And all of those things affect them. Like I said, recognize that's the kind of home you came from. There's no need to be ashamed about it. Your experience does not define who you are. Once you have recognized that, you want to know what impact that had on you. That's self-awareness. I tell us this because we don't really live in a part of the world where we are really open about our pains. Okay? And because of that, there's a lot of secrecy and shame around what we shouldn't be ashamed about. You are a child. You didn't know when your parents came together. So why should you be ashamed of how their marriage turned out? So you want to know that, okay, it's not my fault, because what happens in most of those cases is that the children start to blame themselves. They start to think that it was because of me, my father or my mother stayed in all those mess. Because that's what some of the parents tell the children. I am here because of you. I'm suffering because of you. So the child now personalizes that blame. And that affects, that has a negative impact on their mental well-being and even their sense of self. These are the things that affect our personality over time. So now you have to take away that blame. Your relationship with your mother is mother-child. Your relationship with your father is father-child. The marriage relationship between the husband and the wife, you were not the cause of it. It's not your fault. That's where you have to first. Because when I work with some clients, they blame themselves for what happened to their parents. And they take it up. You might not know. Sometimes it's an unconscious thing. Okay, you think it's because of me, my parents did not live together. Or because of me, my father was suffering in that marriage or whatever. It's not your fault. And then you want to know what happened. Understand, I tell people to have conversations with their parents. It's one of the things I've been conversing, especially we black African, we adults. Don't hear only one side. Because the key to healing is gaining insight. You want to understand what really happened. When you have become older, talk to mommy. What really happened? Talk to daddy. Maybe their marriage could not work and they were struggling to make it work so that they can keep the family together. So when you gain understanding of what really happened, it helps you to separate yourself and not take it like because my parents' marriage did not work, my own too will not work. All right? So you are able to separate yourself and work on yourself.
Thank you very much for that. Please, if you have your questions, you can write them down. Questions, anything relating to mental health, any issues that you think you want her to respond to. Now, I'm still talking about some of the causes of mental illness. I remember when I was in school, I had a friend who was very sound, mentally, physically, and then all of a sudden, she had to go to the hospital for a checkup, and she was told that she might not be able to have kids because she wasn't going to be seeing her monthly flow again. And in the space of less than 4 days, she fell into depression. Anxiety set in. Her grades started dropping. And this is somebody that was very, very sound. And we got to find out that a lot of people actually fall into mental illnesses because of some health conditions that, are saddled with them. So how do they manage these health issues that they have to deal with and also their mental health at the same time for someone that is in that kind of situation?
Right. I told you guys in the beginning, I have to come back to it, that if something affects the way you think, the way you feel, it's going to have an impact on how you act. And that's what mental well-being is actually about. Now, for this person, what happened is that physical health now had a negative impact on her mental health, which is vice versa. Sometimes your mental health also have a negative impact on your physical health. You become depressed or you're sad. Like some people are borderline. When they are going through mental pain, they cut themselves. Okay? And that becomes a case where you have to start treating yourself physically. So that's why I told you they are related. And I'm glad she used this example because they are actually very related. So for this individual, what happened is that she was not able to cope with the negative news. Okay? There's something we call healthy coping skills and unhealthy coping skills. Now, life events happens, and this is where life events affect us mentally. Like a loved one. Okay, when I lost my mother, I went through, panic attack. In fact, I couldn't cry for the first 1 year, but it was heavy, it was here. Okay, so I could not grieve. I lost her quite too early, so I could not grieve. And that had a negative impact on my mental well-being. So when we don't know how to cope, when a life event happens to us, it can have a negative impact on our mental health. What you do, it's when something happened to you, and I really want to emphasize this, it has already happened. They already said you have this disease. They already said this has happened. The first thing, it's hard, but it's very helpful for us psychologically. Acceptance of what is. That keyword is. When you struggle to accept what has happened, you think different thoughts. Why did this happen to me? How could this have happened to me? And from thinking that, you start to think that, oh, maybe God doesn't love you. You start to think maybe you're unfortunate. And from there, let me tell you what happened. Your thinking is what you think. If you keep thinking negatively, it releases certain chemicals into your body that now impact on how you feel. So it's a physiological thing. Our thinking and our feeling is a thinking, feeling loop that is constantly affecting our physiology. Now, in this case, maybe she was thinking so much about the problem, thinking why it happened to her, how it will affect her, and through that, before you know it's a spiral thing, she gave up. She gave up living. One of the signs of depression is that it's like giving up on life. You want to separate yourself. You stay on bed all day. You lose interest in the things that you used to like before. Okay? Why? Because you are thinking that there's no hope to these things. Accept what is. Accept what is. Okay? It is what it is right now. It doesn't mean that you don't have faith, because faith is not blinded. For you to have faith, you have to know what the problem is, what you're having faith for. Accept that, okay, this sickness is here. So what's the next thing? Is it money? Is it treatment? Find solution to problems rather than brooding and ruminating. The more you ruminate on that negative life event that happened to you, what happens? Your body breaks down. Your nervous system is affected. Depression sets in. All sort of things set in. And it becomes double case for you. Key thing, accept what is. The next thing, find solution. What can I do to mitigate this immediate problem? That's what we should be focused on. Who has gone through it before? How can I get support? Okay? Let's be practical. By the time you move, as your body moves into kinetic energy, movement is actually very helpful in mental health. As your body moves, okay, the energy also moves. So it's not stored as trauma. You're able to move and start to act, and that helps you. Okay? So accept what is. That's the first thing. And then ask yourself, what can I do to mitigate this situation? How do I solve this problem? Problems exist to be solved, not just to be brewed over and then you are there, you are stuck, you don't know what to do. It's not helpful. You are storing energy in your body.
Thank you. So we've learned that the first thing is acceptance, then finding a solution to this issue. But it seems like the society we live in doesn't make it very easy for people to grieve or for people to express their pain. I'll use myself as a practical example. I lost my dad when I was 2, so I didn't know much about fatherhood and all that. But then I had someone who was like a father to me, to me and my family. And sometime in 2015, that was the person I took as, okay, this person is my father, you understand. And then he also passed on in 2015. Wow. I was in school at the time, and I wasn't really allowed to, grieve. there was a thing of you just have to move on, accept it. It has happened. And at the same time, I was falling into depression. I was not able to express how I really felt. I was not able to share my pain with any. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are like this. You know, you speak with Christians, particularly. I'm going to share this. You speak with Christians about some challenges you're facing. And there's a thing of, okay, you're a Christian. You're not supposed to go through this. You're not supposed to be feeling like this. There's something wrong with you. There's this balance is not there. So you start to ask yourself, am I wrong for feeling the way that I feel? And how then can I express pain? Because some people, you hear some therapists tell you that one way to heal is to express pain. Cry if you need to cry. Grieve if you need to grieve. You know, whatever you need to do to feel better, do it. And at the same time, you are not permitted to do it on one side. How then do we strike a balance just for the sake of our mental health?
Wow, that's a very interesting one. Especially, I really want to focus this on grief, because grieving is not even just about losing our loved ones. Sometimes we grieve the loss of the life that should have been. I found that very common among people. The life, the hope you thought, the childhood dreams, and then looking at reality, the disparity between your aspirations and where you are, we grieve it. And many people cannot express this. They grieve it. Okay? So grief is a critical thing in human life. But unfortunately, it's like we are not allowed to be humans. Okay, let me address this specifically to us Christians. Did God make a mistake creating us with emotions? He knew why he did that. Because what she said is a very common thing. They say, oh, don't cry. You know, and they will start to quote how we are not grieving like those who are ignorant and all of those things. You know, but this person is hurting. How can I empathize with their pain? Sometimes don't say anything. Just let them know that you are there. Let them feel that pain. Because a pain you do not feel, a pain you are not allowed to feel, you are not able to express. You know what happens? These things, our life is basically, emotions are basically energy emotions. They get stored in your body. There's something we call psychosomatic illnesses, of which depression happens to fall even into that. What happens is that your emotions is attacking your body. Okay? The stored trauma, the stored emotions after a while, because they need an outlet. They need to go out. You've not been able to express them. They turn to anger. You know, many times when I talk with people who are very angry, if I'm helping people with anger issues, you realize that it's not really anger. There's something underneath it they've not been allowed to express. That anger is trying to gain attention for. It happens even with children. A child keeps throwing tantrums. Maybe the child is being neglected. The child needs more hug, more touch. You know, human beings have emotional needs. If you are hurting, please cry. How come crying is almost like a natural thing when we are hurting? Maybe that's how God designed us. It's a way to express the pain. How come we feel more relieved after crying? Don't you feel relieved after crying? Oftentimes we feel relieved. Cry. Have a supporting system. Have authentic friendships. I'm emphasizing on that. Have people you can talk to, that you can say, I am hurting. And you can tell them the way it is, and they are not judging you whether you are a strong Christian or a weak Christian. Even our Lord wept. He wept because of the pain. He was out of that. His weeping was out of compassion for the people who were grieving. Okay, grieve. Okay, allow yourself to grieve. If you can't handle it alone, seek church counsel. If that cannot help you, seek professional therapists. Knowledge exists so that we can utilize them for our well-being. Okay? Allow yourself grieve. See, anything you don't resolve, they don't leave. Trauma does not, see, the body does not forget. We used to call it that the body keeps the scores. Sometimes, why do you see a particular thing and it's a trigger? Where is the trigger coming from? Your body is remembering a time that something similar happened and maybe you were attacked. I know a lady who going to work very early in the morning because she was working far. She was attacked. And after then, coming out in the morning became a war. It's a trigger. Darkness became a trigger. Why? It takes her back to that moment when that attack happened. She was traumatized. And she has to go through sessions to understand that what happened, what is happening to her is only a memory that is no longer happening in the present. But the body stored it. Okay? So allow yourself grieve. Give people space to grieve. Go through the process of grief. Okay? Grieving is easier but when you gain understanding of what happened. By then, you feel relieved. Okay? It's okay to cry. It's okay to ask for help. We are here to help one another. It's okay, to have somebody stand in for you when you're weak. We call it borrowing support. Sometimes your faith is low. Okay, look at it. We do it in prayer. We say we are joining faith together. You think all of us have the same level of faith at that time? Some might have it higher, some have it lower, but collectively, we get more results. So you can borrow support from somebody who's not grieving at that time. You can let them know you need the love, you need the attention. Okay, and let's know when to be kind to people when they are going through stuff. Don't say, understand what they are going through and be there for them. Allow them. They might become very vulnerable. They might become even childish. It's what they are going through. Something happened. Allow them.
Very much for that. I was going to move on to something, but I want to touch on triggers. You mentioned triggers in relation to how mental health changes over time. Now, there are situations where people heal to a large extent. They get over it. They are moving on with their life. And then there's a trigger. They see something that reminds them of that incident. And then they fall back into it again. The depression, the anxiety. Then they go through the process again. They heal. Then there's another trigger. And then it goes like that in a cycle for years. What is the solution? Like, is there an absolute solution to issues like that so that this person doesn't keep going in, coming out, going in, coming out, and it affects the person's life at the end of the day?
Okay, I'm not here to give you a shortcut to anything because there's actually no shortcut to mental well-being. Let me try to explain that trigger in terms of the brain. Let me give another practical example. Let's use a common one, soldiers. Soldiers, a lot of soldiers are going to war. They end up with, a lot of them go through a lot. We know, we used to say, now war soldier, they affect, we know. Even when I was growing up, I didn't understand it then, but they used to say, you go war. People will give excuse that's how he's acting, scoing. Let me use that word in quotes. So we have an idea. Now, when a soldier is exposed to gunshots daily, seeing dead bodies, seeing the colleague he ate with in the morning, lost at noon. All of it is happening in real time. He's trying to save himself. He's trying to save his country. And at the same time, death is at the door every moment. What happened? He does not have the time to even grieve his colleague. He does not have the time to cry over what is happening. He has to fight. So everything is happening in real time. And then a lot of them, when they retire, and coming back to real life, if that soldier had a particular incident, most times always maybe a very close alliance, maybe sometimes they put them in teams, maybe in their own camp, a particular close ally died, and then by the time they leave war and they are returning back to life, even hearing gunshots, seeing shouting, things that reminds them of chaos. It takes them back. It's very common among military men. It takes them back to that time when the event happened. What is happening is this. You see, our brain actually deals with emotions before it comes to thinking. This is our thinking brain. We call it the cortex. But at the lower part of our brain, the brainstem, everything you see, the brain actually attaches emotions to it first before it thinks. So at that point, when something similar is reminding you of the past, you are thinking, because that your lower part of the brain does not know time. It does not know time and space. Time and space is only analyzed in our cortex, in the front part of our brain. It's only when it gets there you can know that, what is happening now is not happening, no. But the first time that you see that smell or that gunshot that is reminding you of that past, you are thinking that it is happening in the moment. So everything you felt, why it was happening 10, 15 years ago, you'll be feeling it in the moment. That's how some people have panic attack. Everything is suspended. Their nervous system is breaking down. It's as if what happened yesterday is happening now. Sometimes an accident, okay? Your brain the emotional brain first is the one seeing that information. It's connecting what is happening now, what you're seeing now, to the memory of the past. And it's thinking that it's the same thing. That's what we call trigger. That's why you are being triggered. That's how we say you are being triggered. So you are thinking that what happened yesterday is happening now. You are feeling, in fact, you feel the same thing. So what is the healing process? The healing process is understanding that it's not your fault. You have to understand how your brain works. So the moment you're feeling triggered, you have to understand your triggers first off. Know where your triggers are. And when you are not being triggered, okay, understand the process of the brain. That's what therapies are for. This is what we do in sessions. Trying to make you understand how your body works, how your brain works, why you are reacting this way. Okay? So you just need to understand that how you are feeling now is not because of what is happening now. That's the key thing. Okay? It's the memory of the past. Because that past is similar to what is happening now, your body is now thinking that yesterday event is what is happening. Do you get it? So that's what is happening. So you are now feeling as you were feeling when the gunshot, the war, okay, when you were robbed. So you are being triggered and experiencing panicky attack. So you just need to know that in this present, there's no war. It's just noise. It's just people fighting. In this present, I'm not being robbed. It's just a perfume. Sometimes it's the perfume of the person that robbed you or raped you. A similar smell. Sometimes it's the place or the name. Something about that past just triggers you. And your brain is now thinking that the past is happening now. It's not happening now. It's the memory of the past. So what we do in sessions is helping you process that past. It takes time. I will not deceive you and say it's just an immediate thing. These are emotional things. It takes time, but people do come out of it. So that you don't react so much as you used to.
Very much for that. Okay, so we live in a time where if people are not careful, they will slip into depression easily.
Yes.
Are we talking about the economic situation of the country, the insecurity? You know, there's the jackpot syndrome out there where almost every youth or almost every Nigerian now wants to travel abroad. And if you're not traveling abroad, it feels like something is wrong with you. So for the youth in the house and for young people who are just, trying to start up their life, trying to find a balance, what are the steps they can take to ensure that they are mentally and emotionally equipped so that they don't fall into depression and become stagnated, unable to achieve their dreams and their goals because of everything that is going on around us?
Okay. The first thing I tell people is that, Nigeria happened to most of us, okay? Because sometimes, because of the way the situation is, you start to think that you are the one that has problem. I always tell people this thing. That's why I go back to understanding what is. The Nigeria economy, okay, is a factor. So you don't have enough jobs because we don't have enough manufacturing firms. It's not because you are not intelligent enough. Okay? Because you need the awareness of these things. When you personalize something, when you feel like I am the fault, I am the reason why this is happening, most of that's where distorted thinking starts from. So how you feel about yourself is affected, is impacted negatively. Okay, that's where this mental issue starts from. You have to understand that the economy of Nigeria right now is not looking good. $1 to Naira, I think, is 740 or 730. That affects your purchasing power. It affects many things. First off, so how do you navigate this era? Accept the reality. I always come back to it because without acceptance, we don't heal. We don't find solution to problem. We'll just be, complaining, and you'll be stuck. And the moment you become stuck, problem starts because your body becomes immobilized. And one of the things about depression is immobility. That's why many times to move, to do anything, they hold back. You want your body in movement. You want to be able to stand up when you have to. You want to be able to move when you have to. Okay? So ask yourself, what skills do I need at this point, okay, to navigate the economy? Right now, tech is booming, okay? And tech is so beautiful that anybody can learn it because there are different spheres of tech. It's wild. then you want to ask for support. You want to be truthful with yourself that I don't have this money. I know some of you want to travel. It's very likely that this thing about everybody wants to leave Nigeria and run away. Maybe you are trying, it is not working, and it's now affecting you. My brother, my sister, start with what you have. Stay where you are and do what you can at this point. Don't aspire so much for what you cannot do that you start feeling, depressed over something you cannot achieve. What can you achieve now in the immediate? How can you cope now with the economy? What can keep your body and soul together? Start from there. We grow. Life is in stages. Give yourself the time, okay? Don't rush and then don't compare yourself to the next person. Comparison is a big deal. That comparison, I have to come back to it among youths. Oh, my friend that I finished university together, he traveled a few months ago, but look at me, I'm still here struggling with this job. You don't know the full story. And you and your friend, you don't have the same destiny. You don't have the same path. Focus on your life, okay? It takes time. Let your life be about you. Mind your business.
See, that issue of comparison is really a big deal. A lot of people take it as a competition. My friend has gone here, so I have to go here or this or that. But before we start attending to questions, there's something very important that came to my mind. I remember growing up, we used to have like a neighbor that constantly used to be aggressive for no reason. It's not like he wasn't married. It's not like there was anything that was from our own perspective. And then I remember then that a family friend came around and spoke to him and said, are you sure you don't need to see a counselor or somebody? And he said, no, I'm fine. Everything is okay. This is just how I am. And you realize that there are a lot of people that are having issues mentally, mental health challenges that do not know that they have mental health challenges. So how then do we know when we are going through how can you say, okay, this person has mental health challenges or the person has an issue mentally without the person speaking up?
Okay. If you go back to what I said in the beginning about thinking and feeling and behavior, you will understand, like this guy now, what you are seeing is aggression. What is causing it, he might not even be aware. There's something we call unconscious mind. Unconscious in the sense that it's not conscious. Conscious means obvious. So unconscious means that it's underneath the mind. It's not at your awareness level. So you don't know why this is happening. But the reason is at your unconscious level. It could be coming from childhood neglect. It could be coming from an abandonment issue. It could be coming from, dysfunctionality in your lifestyle. Or it could be anything. But what we are seeing is the symptom. Most times what we see in human behavior are symptoms. We don't know the causes. We don't know why they are behaving the way they are behaving. So if you're having persistent anger issues, that's not normal. If you are always moody, this moment you're happy, the next thing, you switched. So people don't even know. Before they talk to you, they have to observe your mood before they say anything. Obviously, something is not right. That's where I come back to, admitting that there's a problem. If you don't admit that you have a problem, you have a challenge, you're not going to find solution. Okay? You are unusually aggressive. You say that's the way you are. Of course, that's likely not the way you are. What you want to do is understand, just that you might not be aware, like I said, at the conscious level, you might not be aware of why the aggression. But as an adult, you have responsibility for your life. And I say this all the time. No matter the kind of home you come from, no matter what had happened to you, the moment you become an adult, it is your responsibility to fix your life. And I can't say this enough. The essence of being an adult is taking responsibility. So what happens is that you own that thing, you own the anger. You accept that this is my anger and I need to deal with it. And you seek help. But you must own it. Don't blame the next person. Don't blame events in the past. We know that it was part of it. Like I said in the beginning, we are behaving a particular way because of what happened to us. But that's at the awareness level. We can't remain there. We have to now give ourselves the grace to recreate our life. Because we actually have that capacity. There are tools and resources available. We have to be disciplined and take responsibility. Okay? That's how we get healed. That's how we become free.
Very much for that. So because of our time, we'll move straight into the questions. I'm sure the questions will answer some of the other questions, would have touched on. This person says, what advice will you give to a person who was molested and got addicted to having sex or masturbating and feels so bad about it? The person feels depressed each time she remembers what happened and she feels worthless. What advice would you give?
That's so similar to the example you gave earlier. Okay, when you were, like I said before, that molestation, in fact, sexual molestation, we are not punishing the perpetrators enough, because that thing does a lot of damage to children when they become adults. Because what it means is that you are exposing something so beautiful in a horrific way to a person. It affects their sense of personhood. So this person now, I would suggest you actually need help. Seek therapy. Because you going back for pleasure and giving yourself, what you are trying to use it to cope with the pain you are feeling. So the temporary pleasure would make you forget, like you said, and thinking about what happened. That temporary pleasure of sexual gratification. But once that dopamine is gone, you come back to your reality. That's not going to save you. And this is where addictions. Let me just use it to chip in on addiction. This is where people, youths, when I came in, I was telling you how Nigeria is experiencing an addiction epidemic. It's a serious problem. And these are where these things come from. Addiction is actually, a way to cope with a pain. That there's something you are hurting from. There's a mental pain. And you are looking for sex, shopping, drug, alcohol, party. You're looking for an activity to distract you from that pain. And sometimes these are part of the pain, but they don't work. So you become addicted because when that thing is no longer in use, you go back to reality. Now, in order not to feel reality, you go back to that thing. And the circle goes on and on until your brain becomes used to that way of pleasure. So we say you have become addicted. That's how these things happen. That will not help you. Seek help, okay? Walk through, and then one of the key things I want you to know is that molestation does not define you. It happened in the past. I am sorry that you went through that. I'm sorry for that event. You didn't deserve it. But I want you to know that it's gone. It's over. You can actually walk your way out of it. There's hope.
So, before we move on to another question, this is also in relation, but this person's issue is that she was also raped at the age of 12, but now it's affecting her in raising her daughter because she gets scared anytime she sees her daughter in the company of male. How can she get out of this in terms of parenting?
Again, back to what we said about triggers. You see how she's being triggered. Because now, if she sees her daughter around an older male, she remembers what happened. And so she reacts. She might react irrationally. You see how what happened to us affects our current behavior? What I would like to tell that person is that your fear, sometimes we make things happen out of our fear. If you keep thinking of it, you are creating it. Okay? You are creating it for your daughter. Okay? Separate yourself from it. Your daughter, do your part to protect her. Do what is right. Don't leave her unattended to male. It's not even advisable, whether male or... Because male, see, guys don't talk. I'm a therapist. A lot of guys were also raped. They don't talk. Oh. We talk about the female. A lot of men were raped. So these are things, and all of these things have affected us now as adults. We're all looking proper outside. But these are things we are dealing with on the inside. So please, it won't happen to your daughter. Take precaution, but don't put your belief on her. So that you don't use your own mind to create it for her. Okay?
All right, thank you. So we have some questions online. I want us to go to that. Said there are a myriad of events that we don't have control over. For example, our harsh environment, the not so smiling economy, ASU strike, unemployment, and so on. All these impact negatively and subconsciously too. How can we consciously work on our emotions and mind to cope with this? That's one. The second question is, people feel they will be stigmatized as being mentally unstable when they have to see a professional therapist, especially in this side of the world. Kindly explain more about the advantages of seeking counseling and professional help. Those are the two questions we have.
Okay. The first one, I think I addressed it earlier. You have to understand, see, Nigeria is a third world country. We don't have leaders who are actually focused on development. These are realities. 8 months of ASU strike, that's a session gone. You cannot say that there's no psychological impact on these children. Let's not deny this thing. That's 1 year out of their life. Some should have graduated. So there's that thing of feeling stuck. Like, what will I do? What next? So I understand your pain. These are normal reactions. What you feel, that's another thing we need to understand. Feeling dissatisfied, feeling, unease over current, distressing event. It's normal. What is not normal is becoming fused. What becoming fused means that you cannot separate yourself from that event. You think you are that event, and that event is you. That's where there's a problem. See the ASU thing. See the economic thing. Ask yourself, what do I do? Do I stay at home? Do I learn a skill? Okay. I don't have money. Do I work? My sister owns a pharmacy, chains of pharmacy. During this ASU strike, some uni students were working just to cope. Always find a way to solve immediate problems. That's what I noticed. We have challenge with that. Solve immediate problem. It helps a lot. Otherwise, they accumulate and it becomes a problem. And then the next one about what about seeking professional help? There's no professional that you go to see that will come out and be sharing your story. Okay? Now, what are the advantages? The advantage is that most of them use psychological tools and even spirituality a lot of times. There's faith, and there's also faith-based. There are faith-based counselors who only do. I know some faith-based counselors, they go into Christian counseling. I am a psychologist. I go in that space. I use psychological tools. Basically on rewiring and unwiring your brain through what you're thinking and feeling. And it's a process. I know, I said it initially that sometimes you feel like, because you are going through emotional or mental distress, that means that you have mental illness. No. Anything that affects your day-to-day coping, even stress. Stress has a negative impact on your mental health. And sometimes you want to learn how to cope with stress. We do stress management coping skills in organizations for workers. Okay? Because once you can manage the immediate distress, you are saving tomorrow. So whatever you can do to seek professional help, if you can afford it, by all means, do so. It's helpful for your own good.
Thank you for that. Now, this says, how can a nursing mother get out of postpartum depression?
I am so sorry because this is so common, but when they go through it, they will say, you are not strong. Are you the only one that's given birth before? My mother said that she didn't go through that. Postpartum depression is real. Men, please, understand our women. A woman's body is complex. It's very complex. Some women, after giving birth, it's as if they want to kill that child. It's not that they want to. It's the distress of the pregnancy and the childbirth is affecting them. Please, if you are going through postpartum depression, don't keep it to yourself. I don't know where you are, so I can't ask you what signs you are having that shows. But one of the signs is actually you feel distant from your baby, okay? And then you start to regret that, why am I not feeling love for this child? And then sometimes you don't want to even carry the child because you're going through mental pain. You can't even explain it. And then sometimes your body, you start being so self-conscious about what pregnancy has done to your body, okay? Sometimes those are some of the signs, all right? Let your partner know how you feel. Don't hide it. If you have a mother-in-law or a mother, let them know how you feel. That's where the support system should start from, so that they can spend more time with the baby while you also cope with what is going on with you. You're not alone. It's very common. The only thing is that we call them, we'll say, now lazy woman. Now let she don't born before. Every individual has a unique experience. We have to understand that. And the experiences we have and how we interpret it, it's going through a lens of our family background, our exposure, so many things. So we have to learn to first show compassion. Okay? Talk to your partner about it. Your husband has to first understand what you're going through. Don't hide it. Don't try to fake being strong. You are a human being. Sometimes you are down. And it's okay.
just a follow-up question, just in case. What if this person doesn't have a partner?
If they don't have a partner, I'm sure they have family. Because the essence of family, and when I say family here, I don't just mean blood relatives, even friends, neighbor. That's why I'm surprised when people don't relate well with their neighbors. Your neighbors, sometimes they are your best family because your family is far. Okay? Have support system means people that you can actually relate with and tell what is going on, that they can understand with you and relate with you. Or you seek professional help. Okay? I'm sure the church has counseling departments. You can inform the church counseling departments. You can seek therapy. But please don't joke with postpartum depression. Accept what is happening. Okay? What you're going through is not because you're lazy. It's a mental thing, and you'll get over it. Most times, it goes. Before the baby becomes 6-7 months, it's kind of, it subsides. All right?
This one is from a teenager. He says, I don't have rich parents, but they try to make me happy. However, I always feel depressed and cry sometimes when I get insulted by my teachers and classmates at school due to some of the things my parents cannot afford to buy for me. What advice can you give me to get out of this?
If you are that teenager, I think you should report your teacher to the head teacher. That a teacher would insult a student. If it's the student alone, I can understand. Okay, they are still growing. It's part of growing up. But a teacher, insulting a child for the state of their parents' financial position is not a good one. It's not. And when we go to schools to talk about well-being, this is one of the things we'll talk about. It's actually not nice. You, as an adult, you're supposed to even help that child cope with their financial situation, not mock them. So if you are that child, and you said it that your parents are trying their best, so you are grateful, please, it's not your fault that your parents don't have money. So there's no need to personalize the shame. You are in the same school with them, so you are all on the same level. Don't feel ashamed. The shame is not yours. Because your parents cannot afford it now does not determine what the future would be. We have many people, in fact, they didn't even have shoe to walk to school. They turned out fine. Do your studies well. And this is bullying. And one of the ways to conquer bullying is facing the bully. What I want you to do is, when next somebody insults you for your financial states, ask them whether they want to take charge of these expenses. Because why else? Since you are a teenager, ask them, do you want to help me pay? The moment you are able to face them with that, they will see that you are no longer ashamed. It's because they see you being ashamed and crying. That's why they are continuing. Please, the shame is, you have nothing to be ashamed about. Okay?
Very much. This seems to be a case of emotional abuse. It says, as a young girl of 12, I started living with my family relations. The treatment I got from them wasn't good. They had children of my age. They treated their children well, but they treated me like an outcast. This led to low self-esteem. I feel ashamed. Now I'm all grown. I'm in my 20s, but I'm still struggling with the effect because I get depressed easily. How can I help myself out of this? Now, the person is also saying, I noticed that whenever I feel anxious or under pressure, I forget things a lot.
Yes.
What can I do?
Yes. In fact, let me start from that last part. That's one of the things about emotional disturbance. You forget things. That's why a key might be in your hand, and you are looking for it. You know what is happening? You are going through a distress that you can't relate, you can't fathom. So you are trying to dissociate yourself from that reality. So your mind is not there. You're not present. That's what is happening. That's why you forget, because you're not mindful in that moment. So you can't see things. You are not present. You are dissociating. Okay, you are living mostly in your head. Okay? Now, you said you have experienced that thing in the past. You are now in your 20s. Like I said, I'm happy for the questions. They kind of confirm what we have talked about. I told you most of the things that are affecting us in adulthood is mostly what happened to us earlier in our developmental stages of life. The body does not forget. The body keeps the score. How people treated you, how they made you feel. Sometimes it's the reason why you have low self-esteem. You think that you are not worthy. Please. They treated you, they ostracized you. I want you to understand that that was the best they knew at that time. Okay? They don't define your worth. What is happening is that you are still using the memory of how they treated you to define who you are now. Okay? So now you're thinking that if those people did not treat me well, it means that I am not worthy. And so now you feel unworthy. There's that sense of feeling not good enough. That's why they didn't treat me well. My darling, that's not why they didn't treat you well. People project their insecurities on us. Their behavior towards us is not always about us. And the moment you understand this, you separate yourself from how people treat you. Okay? When people are insecure, they treat people in an insecure way. We are mostly projecting how we feel about ourselves onto other people. And you have to understand that. So how they treated you was based on who they were, not who you are. That's what I want you to understand. Okay?
Very much. I'm sure a lot of people are getting answers to other questions they have in mind. Now, being separated from my husband and now a single mother at my youthful age, it really gets to me and adds to my thinking. And I also felt bad for my only daughter, and I think about how she can cope. What can you advise or say to me in this situation? In fact, I feel like crying as you're speaking. That's what the person is saying. So the person needs an answer.
Wow. I'm really sorry. Okay? You know, we don't have, like I always say, life happens. And that's why acceptance of what is a key part of psychological well-being. When it has happened, we have to accept that it has happened. That's how we can find help. Okay? You have been separated. Now, your fear is, oh, how will this affect my daughter? And based on that fear, you're not present in this moment to take care of her. So it's your fears now that is affecting her, not even the events. So what happened has happened. Now, I don't want to just say that so that it won't look like I'm minimizing your pain. It was a difficult situation. We know that. It's not easy to be separated. Marriage breakup is a huge pain. So now you're grieving. Okay? But don't take it on your child. Don't allow the fear. Because anything we do out of fear, we should live by faith and in love. When we do things out of fear, it creates insecurities. Okay? And that's kind of, what that does is that it makes things worse than they appear to be. Okay? So, please, go through your grieving process until you're able to accept what happened to you. But don't be afraid for your daughter. Don't be afraid about, oh, how will she turn out? Well, how are they seeing me as a single mother? Single mother is not your definition. You chose to stay with the child and raise the child. So you are doing the right thing. So you have nothing to be ashamed about. In fact, I think that we should praise single mothers. They are the one that chose to stay with these children. Okay? So you are doing a good thing. So you should be proud of yourself. Okay? Do the best you can. But let me tell you, parenting is not perfect. There's no perfect parents. We are just doing our best. Okay? Do the best you can. But don't do it out of fear. Do it out of love. Sometimes you can have conversation with your child. Sometimes I get parenting wrong. I'm not doing it right. Okay? I may not be perfect. But I love you. What a child needs most is to know that they are loved. I know we don't do this often, but tell your children, I love you. It's powerful. If you can't do the most, tell them, I love you, and I will do my best for you. That's enough.
Right. So because of our time, we'll rush through the remaining two questions. This one says, please, can you shed some light on ADHD?
Yeah.
And bipolar disorder. Also, what is self-awareness, and is there a particular age for an individual to be self-aware?
Okay. ADHD is attention deficit disorder. What it means is that a lot of times the sufferers, they are not able to be present in the moment. You're always distracted. You have 1,001 thoughts in your mind. Okay? It's mostly common in childhood. And then after a while, the children outgrow it. That's why those children, some of those children you see in classroom that don't pay attention, that the teacher will be beating in and out, some of them are going through this. Okay? And many people that have this ADHD, it comes from turbulence in the home. So the child is trying to dissociate from what is happening in the present. So a lot of times they are in their mind. So they are ruminating. There's a lot of thoughts. what they need is actually attention. Sometimes ADHD is actually an attempt for attention. Okay? What they need is that the attention deficit means that they are not present in the moment. So what do you do? Maybe this person is likely to be an adult because some adults do suffer from it. It's mindfulness. I want to encourage you to indulge in some mindfulness practices like meditation, okay, and stretches or yoga. Simple things, taking a walk, okay, things that brings you to the present. ADHD just that you are not present. Let me just use that simple terms. You are not often present. So a lot of times you might even forget things easily, okay? You lose focus, you lose attention, okay? So it's a coping, most of these mental illnesses, I must say, they're actually, unhealthy coping skills we learned in younger ages. And then when we grow up, psychologically we attach terms to them. A lot of times people who have ADHD, they had terrible childhood. So in trying to dissociate from what was happening, some of them, they were going through violence in the house, serious violence. And they couldn't cope as a child. So in order to live that, so they'll start daydreaming, dreaming of a beautiful life in their mind. These are where some of these things start from. So it was you trying to cope. So now is you want to learn how to be mindful, how to be present. Do meditation, do journaling, okay? Pay attention to what is happening in the moment. If you are washing, wash. If you are cooking, cook. Every time you notice that your mind is drifting, bring yourself back to what you're doing. Then bipolar, bi means two, dual. When we say people are bipolar, it's extreme polarized emotional states. So at one point, you are depressed. At the other point, you are hyper. So your state is rotating between two, bipolar. So when you are in a depressed state, you are extremely low in energy. You are sad. You are down. Now, when you are in undepressed state, you are hysterical, full of energy, and the key thing here is trying to find a balance. They are just extreme cases of emotions. And I don't know if you were diagnosed of that, but that's actually what it is. And don't label yourself. Please, these things I described, don't say, that thing that woman was saying, I have it. Please, don't do self-diagnosis. Okay? Because this is where problem comes. That's why sometimes when we talk about mental health, we are also very careful. Because you can be sad and happy does not mean that you are bipolar. Okay? Thank you.
I thank you very much for sharing all of this with us. I'm sure a lot of people still have some questions. You can actually see her after the service so that she can answer your questions. But because of our time, we would have to wrap up the conversation here. Thank you so much. At least we've been able to learn one or two things. Take responsibility, accept the reality, find solution and support system. Thank you so much, Joy Iseki, for, joining us on this month's edition of This Is My Reality Talk Show. We want you to sign our lovely pillow here.
Wow.